Okay, so there's the top and the bottom, and you can see I just put them together, test fitting and matching up the seam. That doesn't matter that much, I guess, since I'm going to be sanding this, but still, making sure it fits just like you did with fuselage pieces. It's all the same routine, but it fits nice. And in this case, I usually don't put things on like this with super glue, but it did in this case because I'm going to be sanding it. If you're really good, you could even put it in a mandrel or a Dremel and sand it. I do it by hand in this case, but I figure it'd be stronger with super glue in there. So I put it in, make sure it's nice and seated, scrape off any schmutz that came out, which often happens, and then making sure that seam is aligned, and that looks pretty good. You know, overall it's there. Then I take my accelerator and make sure it's dry. I even stick some inside, even though there's a piece of wood in there. I figure maybe fumes would get in there and go up to the edging. I'm not sure, but making some go around that seam makes it so that it's nice and solid and ready to sand without damaging anything. And then you start sanding. I take an emery board and sandpaper. You could use just sandpaper, whatever. You just start sanding it like you would a piece of wood. And the first chips of paper start to come off very easily. And then you will hit some of the super glue that's already there. But you just got to keep persevering, and you're not putting a lot of pressure on here because you're sanding on paper, not on other stuff, not on plastic. So you got to just sort of go delicately. But the paper sort of forms very nice. After all, it's just wood. And so there's a first pass gone around. You know, you get the general idea. You can see where the petal part has been sanded. And just for fun, I put it on where it's supposed to go in the nose, and it looks like it's going to finish it off pretty nice. There's the tail spinner that I finished, and that looks really nice all done. So that's that back end, what I did previously, and then now I'm doing the front to show you. Now, I make a shaft here out of a toothpick, and making sure that these things will line up. When I look at the side of the Dornier, I think that whole system in this kit is all a little high. I don't think the spinner is supposed to be up that high. I think it's supposed to be more centered. Maybe I'm wrong, but we'll see as we go on. Now I'm just gluing this little shaft in there. This will just really serve as a way to establish where the spinners are going to go and have a nice solid attachment when it goes to the fuselage. I usually don't make these spin, but you certainly could. It wouldn't be hard to do. Make sure it's straight when you glue it in. Spin it around your fingers. Make sure that it looks nice, which it does. And then here I'm just test fitting it, but it won't fit. I thought I could make it fit, and then I thought I better not force it. So I took my little X-Acto, drilled a little bit of a hole out, make it a little bit bigger, make the diameter slightly bigger. But then there was still too much of a shaft, so I took these little nippers and cut off a little tiny bit, click, and cleaned up the end, and then it slides right on. And there you can see what it's going to look like, and you can see it finishes off the front end really well. Looks like a Dornier front end. So I'm pretty pleased. It's looking pretty good. And that's just the first rough sanding. Then you go back and hit it with some lighter sandpaper. So this is higher grit, like maybe even be 220 or 110 or something. Probably closer to about 200 or 220. And just kind of sand it. And again, the paper does smooth out pretty nice. The first time you hit it with primer, it still has fuzzes that come up. And you'll see that in a little bit. But that all goes away after a bunch of coats and a bunch of sanding. And then to hold it, I take a little clamp and stick it to the shaft, and then go on. And I use this primer. That's expensive stuff. You don't need to use that. Use any kind of primer. And you just blast it. And that primer will fill the holes. And again, the first time you look at it, it looks kind of crummy. It doesn't look wonderful. But when you do a bunch of these, and then you end up with a really nice spinner.